back with part 2. So when we left off, we were talking about the goals and criteria and how they are just this genius move by the RSCJ in allowing non-RSCJ people like me and all your other teachers and administrators to run Sacred Heart schools and have that unity and the diversity that it's worked so well. I know a test question is like, compared to other religious orders, why were the RSCJ groundbreaking in creating the goals and criteria? And it's because they figured out a way to keep their mission going and pass it on to lay people. Really, very few religious orders have figured this out. The Jesuits, in a way, but yeah, the RSCJ are just brilliant at figuring out how to bring people like me into their mission. So yeah, the goals and criteria, they were first put together in the 70s, first published in 1975, so 10 years after Vatican II ended. And yeah, I want to talk about the cherry on top of this sundae, which is SHCOG. SHCOG is an acronym that stands for Sacred Heart Commission on Goals. This is a 5-year process, so we're constantly in a SHCOG cycle. I believe we're in year 5 of ours right now, and then next year we'll begin with year 1. And yeah, it's a process where every school in the Sacred Heart Network examines how well they're meeting the goals, and they ask all the students and teachers and parents and graduates, like, how is it that we're living out goal 1, goal 2, goal 3? And they get all this information, this data, they put together a report, and they get a visit from official SHCOG members. And this is like an all-star team of Sacred Heart teachers and administrators. So like Mr. K is on SHCOG, and so every year he makes a visit or two to another network school, and that SHCOG visiting team, they will also talk to teachers and students and faculty, administrators and parents, and read the reports that the school put together, and they'll give like an outsider's perspective. And then in year 2, each school develops a plan, like an action plan, based on what we learned in year 1. How can we live out the goals even more? And then years 3 through 5 are implementing that action plan. So it sounds kind of nerdy, but I really love this because it is not only do we have the goals and criteria, we have a process where every school is constantly growing in its level of Sacred Heartness, right? And so over time, that mission is maintained, that identity is maintained. So, yeah. Let's talk about the goals specifically. I want to go through the meaning of the goals because that's another test question. First goal, a personal and active faith in God. It's helpful for some of these goals to imagine the opposite. So, the opposite of a personal and active faith in God would be an impersonal and inactive faith in God. Right? An impersonal faith. Imagine somebody just like talking to a brick wall. Right? That's not a personal relationship. It's just a one-sided thing. What we're aiming for with goal 1 is to have a meaningful encounter with God, and it's not just going through the motions and checking off the box. It involves conversation from the heart. And then active, this is inactive or passive is another opposite to active. So I imagine like a marionette doll, right? Like some people go through their faith lives and it's like somebody else is always pulling the strings. Like, oh, go to Mass, sit down, stand up, kneel, read the Bible. And they never become active in their faith life. So that's goal 1. Goal 2, a deep respect for intellectual values. a common mistake that people make with goal 2 is they just see a deep respect and they think, oh, it's like respecting one another. No, that's a good thing. That's probably more goal 4 though. Goal 2 is all about the life of the mind, intellectual values, the intellect. So what are some intellectual values? Things like research and order and organization and clarity and rigor and harmony and honesty. Beauty even would be an intellectual value. So this is like embracing our inner nerd. You got to embrace that inner nerd and throw your mind into everything you do. Goal 3 is a social awareness that impels to action. So goal 3 starts with this awareness of society. So social society. We learn about social problems, things affecting more than just an individual here or there. It's what's happening on a big scale, a global scale. And it's important that that knowledge does not just stay in our head, right? But it impels us. It's impel, first off, not compel. Compel means that somebody else is forcing you. Impel is it's within. It's naturally leading you to something. And yeah, so learning about the what's happening in society in a way that leads to action. Goal 4 is the building of community as a Christian value. So, yeah, the building of community would be specifically, the relationships that we have with one another here. And it's important that we keep the as a Christian value in mind here, because how did Christ build community? He reached out to everyone, right? Especially those on the margins, people who are, we use that phrase a lot at Duchenne, on the margins. It means like you're on the edges, so you're not in the center. Christ went out to the margins of people who were normally excluded, and he worked to include them. And so goal 4 doesn't mean that you're best friends with everyone. It means that you explicitly and intentionally work on building relationships with everyone so that, you have a solid friendship with them in a deeper sense than just like liking their personality, right? You're going to have people that you are closer with, and that's natural and good. But we want to make sure that we also are building community with those that we maybe don't get along with. And become even more united in that way. Goal 5 is a personal growth in an atmosphere of wise freedom. So, breaking it down, personal growth. Got a baby crawling, walking, and then running and sprinting. Over your 4 years here at Duchenne, the hope is that you will grow, not just physically, but emotionally, intellectually, socially, all of these different ways. You'll learn to embrace your strengths and accept your weaknesses, and not just think of them as like, oh, I gotta fix that. You can't fix everything, right? So you're gonna have limits. And the way that we do that here is an atmosphere of wise freedom, right? So ground floor is a great example of how we live out goal 5 here at Duchenne. And we don't have people like policing what you eat here, right? And so do you want an apple or a piece of cake? And the idea is we want you to become the kind of people that are able to choose at any given moment what's best, right? So it's not always going to be the apple. It would be right to have cake on occasion. And life is better when you have some cake, as long as it's in moderation, right? And so the truly free person, it's easy for them to choose the apple when it's time for the apple, and it's easy for them to choose the cake when it's the cake. And that's the kind of growth that we're going for here at Duchenne. You'll know when to use your iPads and how to use them in the right way, and it's not like you need to be forced to do it. And that's a process, and you'll get more and more freedom throughout your time here at Duchenne. So I believe that's the end. Yeah. All right. Let me know if you have any questions over any of this, and yeah, until next time, freshmen.